Coming up on the season finale of The Guest List,
we'll be bringing in our final guest of the season. That song became my life's theme song, and I've heard it at so many major events in my life.
I was like, if COVID's going to hit and take out the entire world and show me how quickly everything in my life can go away, I'm going to go for my dream.
That rule change, when everything kind of shifted, that's when, in my opinion, that's when I really became a professional. You got to learn to speak the language of musicians to work with musicians.
Jared, now that we know where you've been, what's going on when we come back for season 2? TGL Squad, we made it. Welcome to the season finale of the Guest List podcast. If you're new here, my name is Sarah.
And I'm Jared. We have a lot to talk about today. We'll be starting off talking about how music impacts the world of cheerleading, and specifically the music that Sarah and I grew up with in the sport.
Then we'll be bringing in our final guest of the season, world champion cheer music producer Bowd Beal, who works with a number of well-known teams throughout the industry, including ones that Jared is currently involved with, to continue the conversation.
Finally, we'll tell you all what's up as we wrap up season 1 and look ahead to our sophomore season of TGL.
Here we go!
If you don't know anything about this crazy world of all-star cheer, it involves the sport of cheerleading, which consists of a 2-minute and 30-second routine jam-packed with tumbling passes, stunt sequences, pyramids, jumps, and a dance. In the late 1980s, the first cheer programs outside of a school setting were formed and called themselves All-Stars, with the first cheerleading world championships being held back in 2004. Most cheerleaders travel the country, if not the world, to compete in prestigious events such as Cheersport, NCA, UCA, Majors and Jam Fest, the Summit, but most prestigiously, the Cheerleading Worlds in Orlando, Florida.
So we figured that we would start this off by sharing a little bit about our backgrounds in the sport and how we met and how the music that has guided us through the majority of our lives has impacted us. So I started my cheer journey on my local hometown junior football association cheer team. Shout out Ridgewood and RJFA. I believe our teams were the Missiles, the Jets, and the Rockets.
I like those names.
Right? And so that was my whole fall, 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade. And then in 5th grade, my coach, who was one of the high school cheerleaders, that's how they ran the program. They had the high schoolers coach all of us little ones, did open tumbling at an all-star cheerleading gym called CC Champs. And she suggested that I go to open tumbling too. And when I got there, Megan Bronstein, the owner, came up to my mom and convinced her to let me try out for the All-Star program. And so in the 2010-2011 season, that is when I started competitive cheer. I was on a youth 2 team my first year, even though I did not even have a back bend. So I was a front spot and I ran around the mat and it was really fun. But one of the standout songs from my music that year was Just the Way You Are by Bruno Mars. And that was the first stunt song, aka the elite stunt section, where we do a majority of our tricks where we hold a person in the air and they pull a lot of really cool flexible body positions. Anyway, I digress. Since that year, that song, Just the Way You Are, became my life's theme song, and I've heard it at so many major events in my life since. My first beauty pageant, and most recently, a competition that I went to watch Jared at, a really big one, which we'll get into, and getting in the car right after a really cool week and weekend and just all different things. The first song that I hear when I get in this car is Just the Way You Are by Bruno Mars. So ever since, that's been a really important song to me. And then, yeah, I was on a youth level 1 team, and then we got names. I was on a junior 1 team called Glory. And then the year after that, I was on a senior 2 called Triumph and a junior 3 called Iconic. And then the next year, I'll hold off on telling a little bit. So what about you, Jer? How did your cheer career start?
Okay, so my cheer career started. I was very hesitant to go into cheerleading. I didn't want to do it. I was very against
Wait,
it,
whoa.
honestly.
Oh, whoa. You not wanting to do cheer?
I'm literally insane. It's my entire life now. I work, breathe, and sleep cheer. I didn't want to do it.
Hey, Jer,
My
where
whole
are you
family.
right now?
I am Oh, I'm in a cheer gym because that's where I am all the time. So literally, I didn't want to do it. I was annoyed that my mom kept asking me. I was like, I want to do like basketball or something. Like, let me do what a boy does, you know? S- Crazy, stupid to even think of like that. I know because look at where I am now. But I didn't want to do it. My mom kept bugging me, and I said, you know what? If that'll make you happy, mom, I'll do it. Fine. My whole family cheered, my sisters, both my sisters. Um, my mom was a cheer coach for I don't even know how many years, still is a cheer coach. Yeah, like literally still is a cheer coach, probably more
Shout
than
out Coach Helene. We love
shout
her.
out Coach Aline. She's honestly an amazing coach, and I couldn't have asked for a better first coach, to be honest. But yeah, my mom coached me in cheer too. So
She's
she
also a great team mom, but we'll get there.
also that, yes. But I got my start in cheerleading. My mom wanted me to start, and she put me in this program called Pop Warner, which was basically like a youth league football cheer kind of a thing. But we did compete. We had a few competitions at the end of the year. So it was like a nice mix of both, kind of
And that's
similar.
kind of a difference between like Pop Warner versus my like local. We never.
Yes. Yeah. So it was basically like school cheer where you cheer for the football team during that part of the season and then you go and compete on the sports off season. So we did that for I want to say like 3 years ish. I don't even honestly know the real number, but my mom was my second coach ever and she didn't cheer. My mom was my second coach ever and she coached me for 2 seasons until I went to All Star Cheer. Um, one of the biggest songs I remember from my Pop Warner era is It's Rainin' Men.
Ooh.
Yeah, yeah. So basically, like, I was like the first boy in that program ever.
Oh, I know.
So they wanted to, the theme when I joined that team was like, we have a man on the team. And like literally, so we started it off. I did a show and go. I flew in it. I was a flyer. Yeah, clock that T. I was a flyer. Yes, believe and trust. So I went up in the air and I did a show and go like this. That
Yeah.
was my moment. And it went, it's raining, man. Boom. And that was me. That was me. I was the man that it was
Oh my
raining.
god. I
And
just you were
literally,
like a little baby.
yes, that and Purple Rain, because there was this thing that cheer music producers like to do where it repeated that word during the jump section, and you would jump and it would just say the word over and over again, or the phrase, or the sound effect, and it was just like, "Ew, ew, ew, ew." So for that, it was Purple Rain by Prince, I want to
You
say.
got it.
And
You got it.
and so I literally remember it was like purple rain, purple rain, rain, rain. Yeah. So it just went and went. And that like stuck in my head because like that's so common for jumps to do that in that kind of a section. So
Also, for all of our YouTube viewers, if you're watching us move our hands in like
that's
a random,
bumping the jump.
this
I
is
will not I won't show you a jump because jumps are not my thing.
usually
But
pretty good at them, but I don't have enough room. So sorry, guys, you're not getting a showcase today.
no showcases. I'm not throwing skills today. I did all-star cheer at a place called Cheermania. I was coached by Lauren, who was an absolute angel. Um, love her. She put the word passion into cheerleading. I loved her so much. And I also had a bunch of other wonderful coaches: Sam, Stephanie, Tanya, Dean. Love you all. If you're somehow watching this, love you all. You're all amazing. I started off as a junior 2 athlete, and then a senior 3 athlete after that. Those were my 2 years at Cheermania. And then I just felt like it was time to move on. I had to grow, and the levels of team at Cheermania at that time did not reflect my capabilities. I was moving past level 3. And I felt like, let me move on. So I moved on to a little place called CC Champs that I heard so many amazing things about. And
Seems familiar.
I went there for the 2014-2015 season. And that is where me and Sarah first met when I made the senior 4 team there, and the rest of our friends.
Oh my God, no way.
And that's how me and Sarah met. So
Over 10 years ago.
yeah. And I mean, why don't you tell them about us cheering together, Sarah? Because I'm sure your memory of it is a lot better than mine.
Yeah, because he doesn't remember anything because he just hated every minute of it. No. I think he liked it a little bit. Like I wasn't the worst teammate in the world, okay? So we became fast friends, just on the mat, off the mat. I literally was recounting to Jared earlier, one of our very first text conversations was just about how much we like pasta.
Love pasta.
But on the mat, one of the things that I remember most is how we were kind of battling it out for center dancer.
Yes.
Mostly at the end of a routine, you'll see teams complete a dance portion of the routine. It's a pretty big deal to be center dancer. So we had a whole thing going. We were just throwing shots at each other, and it was really fun. And I think you ended up winning that, but it might just be because you were a boy on the team. Guys, boys on the team back in that day was a very big thing.
How could you say that about my
I'm kidding.
My dancing skills were impeccable.
Yes.
I'm just kidding. No, I mean, I'm not the best dancer, admittedly, but I'm not the worst. But I did win the center dancer.
You did. You won center dancer fair and square that year.
Had to win it.
That was actually the year after, though. That was the second time that we were on a team together, because there was a whole thing that went on the first year, and we ended up not being on the same team.
Oh, yes, that's true. So there was a little situation where
but it was fine. We still became good friends, and we got to be on the mat together the year after. So
exactly. Long story short, I ended up on a different team, actually ended up on an upgraded team with a downgraded team. So it was a little mix of both. And then it just all worked out because we got to be on the same team next year.
Yeah.
And that team was where we
really
fully bonded, because
and that's when he realized that he would be stuck with me forever.
For quite literally. But I remember so much about that year. I think we were just talking about this, how we agree. We really, really liked our mix that year, but we had "We Are the Champions," such an iconic song by Queen, as our pyramid song. And we had
the whole Daisy mix really.
Playing. Yeah, we had Daisy Dukes playing as our dance song.
Oh my God, baby. Like, so much fun. Guys, that song just stuck out to me so much. I ended up putting it in a playlist that I made Jared for his 19th birthday.
Yup, it was good. And it got me hyped up every time we moved. I got moved to that center dancer spot that we talked about earlier. And it was like, come on, baby. And I was like, yeah, let's go. And I was ready to dance every single time. Like,
you know, after we hopefully hit the routine, I think we did that a few times.
Definitely a few. But
it was just so fun to really hit the routine and then have so much fun and be super sharp in the dance. And it was just such a great time.
Yeah. And it's always like thinking about when we were allowed to have real music.
That changed.
That did change in the 2016-2017 transitional year. Do you have more on that information?
Do I have more on that? I think it's something that we're going to get into when Bowd gets here.
Yeah. So
the
2016-2017 transitional part of the year, we were faced with, not being allowed basically to have real songs in our mix. So if it was already copyrighted and licensed to a musical artist, we were not allowed to use it in cheer music unless the copyright was up or we got the rights to the music, that kind of stuff.
It was a whole thing, but it changed how cheer music was made and produced for literally forever.
Yeah. But either way, the mix itself hypes you up for that
Oh yeah.
team.
Yeah,
If
I
you
only
don't have a hype
competed with
mix,
the new licensing rules for 1 year. And that was that 16-17 season when a lot of you know that I moved to a gym called Star Athletics. That's right, I left Jared in the dust. I couldn't stand him anymore.
uh,
No, but I moved to a gym called Star Athletics, and I had a really great season there with Senior Steel. We're gonna pretend that I did not just knock my ring light over. But that was the only year that I competed with the new licensing rules, and I thought it was pretty cool how creative and original the music was, even with no known songs in it. And I don't know, that was my thought. And then I went to college, and it literally did not matter. We used licensed songs anyway. So that was kind of my experience, but I've loved watching you and getting to hear all of your music. And so yeah, what do you think of the new, I mean, new quote unquote licensing, because it's not that new anymore.
so 2017 was my first year on a world's team. And that was definitely a different experience because I was already expecting new kind of a music. Because once you get to that world's level, they really try and amp up that music because, like we said, you got to get hype from that music. And the skills that you're doing from world's level to just one below even are like a whole nother caliber.
Oh yeah,
And
I
just
competed on the level below a world's level, and I cannot do a single skill. Could not back then, definitely can't now. I could not do a single level 6 world's level skill.
yeah, so when you go to that world's caliber, you have to have a world's caliber mix. So I
Mhm.
was already expecting something different, but then I was scared because I was like, oh my God, what if this doesn't live up to what, used to be? I remember just the cheer world being scared.
No,
Like
the whole world.
literally, like we were like, what is cheer music gonna sound like? Like it's gonna be terrible. Some people were like, there's not even gonna be words in it. It was like a freak out moment. Like it was total chaos. And we were like, this is gonna be crazy.
Yeah.
And turns out everything was fine, you guys. Honestly,
Right? It all worked out.
in my opinion, I think music got better.
I honestly agree. I think that it's a lot more fast paced, allowing for a lot more happening in routines, even
Yeah.
just as not a supervisor, but just as a fan now, obviously as a former athlete, I have a little more experience knowing what's kind of going on the mat, but just as a spectator now, that's the word I was looking for. Just as a spectator now, like I can tell there's so much more happening on the floor than there ever was really when I was doing cheer. And that's really, really cool because I can't fathom doing as much as, your team is doing or another team, like really any team, because you even coached a level 1 team a couple years ago, which
Yeah.
is the lowest level. And even then it was so energetic, so visual, and I just didn't see that happening back in the day.
I agree. I think it allows for a lot more fast-paced things, like you said. And the things that we've had to do to adjust to just like the change in difficulty from let's just take the licensing incident as the checkpoint. So we have 2017, what you were doing in those routines, to 2024, what just happened. The
Exactly.
change in what was basically required to win or just perform well in a division is absolutely insane. The world of cheer has increased in difficulty, in creativity, in routine composition in such a short amount of time. So again, the music has to change with it. You have to have faster paced music. You have to have more hyped up music because the routines are harder. And you have to have just this energy of a mix to match what you're doing in that routine. Nobody wants to watch everybody flip around and thrown in the air and doing crazy stuff and flips and tricks and then have a mix that's like
Super slow, not
right,
hype.
slow and boring and just essentially not good. So
And I think that goes to kind of an extra level when you're on an especially well-known team or at an especially well-known program. And I think, Jared, you can attest to that.
yeah, so my little journey from this licensing incident. Like I said, my first world's level team was at 2017 at CC Champs. I did another CC Champs Worlds team the year after. And again, shout out to all my coaches there. I had some amazing coaches there. I had Judy, I had Megan, the owner of the gym.
Mike, Daniela, oh my God, just so many people, even from like before your time.
Yeah.
Brittany,
So
Katie, just so many people. And oh my God, Gabe.
yeah, so
If,
I
we're,
love
if we
it.
forget anybody, please know that we love you so much. If there's any way you're watching this, you changed our lives.
From our first coaches, Gabby and Gabe,
Gabby
love
and Gabe.
those
And
two.
Mike and Daniela were involved in that one too. They were my first coaches at CC
Yes, Mike and Daniela were my first
Robin,
coaches as well.
Robin was there before your time. Oh my God, there's just so many people. We love you all so much. Shout out to the entire CC Champs family.
Literally everyone.
Our CC Champs family. We miss you all so much.
Love everybody there. And so that again, I had to move on because the levels that were there were no longer matching my my skill set. So I just chose to move on to another world's team at Quest Athletics in Pine Bush, New York. And we had an extra small co-ed level 5, 6. That's a whole nother thing to discuss that you don't need to get into.
Level changes. We're talking about the numbers. We're not gonna get into the entire structure.
Extra small was a different experience than what I'm used to. Huh?
I think it was a brand new division.
It had only been competed once before.
Okay, that's right.
And then they just changed the rules too, to where anybody can compete now in that division. So it was like, really? Right when we joined it, are we kidding? Everybody's gonna be in it now. Great. But so yeah, so we were there for 2 years.
Finals at Worlds, right?
We did. We made finals, and the next year, COVID hit, and cheerleading was not a thing.
Exactly.
So,
because I was gonna come watch you at Worlds for the first time that year.
Yeah, and I literally was like, I'm done with cheer. I don't want to do it. I'm over it. I was very burnt out of cheerleading.
I don't blame you.
I was like probably 12, 13 years in at that point.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's
all I lasted. I didn't even last my full 12th year.
Yeah, and I was just like, I want to experience life, I want to see what my life maybe looks like without cheer. And I was just about to go into college anyways. So it was like a perfect transition period for both to happen. And then COVID hit, and I was like, I don't like my life without cheer. I found out the hard way what my life looked like without cheer. And I was like, I don't think I like it. I was like, if COVID's going to hit and take out the entire world and show me how quickly everything in my life can go away, I'm going to go for my dream, and I'm going to make a large co-ed team. I'm going to do it. And so I did that, and I moved my entire life down to the Stingray All-Stars, where genuinely I've never had a better experience in cheer in my entire life. Just well-rounded, everybody, no ill will towards anybody before, but it's just an experience like no other here, between the talent, the coaches, the environment as a whole. It's just very prestigious here. It's very like everybody pushes each other to be better every single day, on top of feeling like a family and feeling like a collaborative effort. Then I started coaching here, and I just like I've had the amazing experience of being a coach at the Stinger All-Stars, which is a whole nother thing that I can't even describe. Feels so rewarding to not only sit here and be at the best gym in the world and participate in the cheerleading that they do, but also help produce the cheerleading that they do. And the fact that they trust me enough to do that with them is
their next generation.
Yeah, I can't even describe how lucky I feel to be here, and do what I do every single day, and wake up and not only have a very short ride to the Stingray All-Stars, but just be able to make it here every single day and do what I do. It is a feeling like no other. So
And as much as I miss you, your move was the worst thing. We all know I cried every day. But it was definitely worth it. I've loved watching you thrive there. Just music wise, I remember like the day before you moved or something, you had like this really small going away party because COVID was still a thing, but I
yeah,
couldn't not say goodbye. And
right.
I remember I think we had like driven back to the house or something, and for whatever reason, the song Tennessee Whiskey, I think that was the song that we were playing in the car. And I just remember I was bawling, sobbing my eyes out. So obviously, more so than just cheer music, like our friendship and our relationship has been like just so like bonded through music and songs and all of
Yeah.
that. So yeah, as much as I miss you, I've loved watching you thrive. Before I start actually crying, I think Bode is in the waiting room, so let's admit him into the room.
Yes. So now I'd like to introduce to you guys one of the big names in the cheer music industry. We have Bode here with us. He actually produced my cheer mix the past 3 seasons, and we are so excited that he's joining us here today.
Yay! Welcome to the guest list, Bode. We're so happy to have you here.
Oh my
Um,
gosh, thank you. Thank you.
why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about your journey as a cheer music producer, kind of your experiences, any cool stories you want to tell, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, before I say anything about me, I want to thank you guys again for just inviting me on. This is very cool. And I love that it's called the guest list. It makes me feel very VIP. I feel very VIP.
That's
Um,
the
I love it. So I mean, for me on the music side, I think music is the vast majority of people love music. I think that's a kind of a generic thing that if it's like, oh, I love music. I mean, kind of everybody. I feel like most people do. Um, but I got into producing music really just out of a fun little hobby. When I was in college, my college roommate had music mixing software, and he was doing some like mashups just for fun. I don't think he eventually did become a professional music producer as well for cheer music, but I think at that stage it was really just for fun. And I was like, hey, can you put that software on my computer? I'm pretty sure it was also like cracked and stolen and pirated software. But he put it on my computer, and I kind of just had fun making mashups. Like, and this was 2001, 2002, 2002. So 22 years ago, I was just making mashups on my computer just for fun, like just for my own personal enjoyment. And then a few months later, a friend of mine, I was cheering in college at Long Beach State University, and a friend of mine who I was teaching cheer camps with in the summertime needed cheer music for his cheer routine. He was like, hey, I know you have, music mixing software. Can you do that? And I was like, I have no idea how, but sure. So over the course of like 2 or 3 weeks, I put together one mix. Took me like 3 weeks to do one mix. And I remember just being really excited about it. And I was at a cheer competition like 3 or 4 months later, and I was sitting in the audience because I went to watch and support because I just felt really cool to do that music. And I was sitting there, and there was some people around me that I knew, some people around me that I didn't know, and I was telling my friends like, hey, watch this team, like I did this mix. And so they went out there and did it, and this was 2002, so it's who knows what it sounded like. But some people that were sitting right next to me like, oh, you made that music? I'm like, yeah, I made that music. They said, oh, how much do you charge? And I was like, charge? And that was like it was like, you'll pay me to do this? And that's really how it started. It's just a fun little hobby. And there was people around that's like, oh, they liked what I had done, and they asked me how much I charged, and the light bulb went on. I was like, oh, I can make money doing this. And it was really just a side hustle. It's kind of like everybody has their side hustle now, that's Uber Eats or DoorDash or whatever. But mixing music was my side hustle. I was coaching full time. I loved coaching. There's things about it that I miss deeply, but I loved coaching so much. That was my passion. It was what I wanted to do. And so my spare time between coaching and playing Halo until 3 in the morning on my Xbox, and teaching summer camps, like my spare time was spent mixing cheer music. And it was just this little side hustle that kind of grew and grew and grew. And I know we're going to talk about the 2015-16 rule change, but really that rule change, when everything kind of shifted. That's when, in my opinion, that's when I really became a professional and started to not only take it much more seriously, but really invest in my knowledge, start learning things, not just going to YouTube University, but also trying to find mentors in the industry, and mentors out of the cheer music industry, but in the music industry that could kind of teach me the lingo, because you got to learn to speak the language of musicians to work with musicians. And I am not a musician by any stretch of the imagination. But yeah, that's kind of an overview. I know I talked for a long time. I didn't really get any specifics, but started as a hobby that was fun, became a little side hustle, and then about 9 years ago, it became my profession. And now it's my only gig. It's all I do all the time. I actually just finished a recording session yesterday, and I have another recording session set up tomorrow because we're just ramping up and getting everything ready for this upcoming season. So yeah, it's a full-time gig that I do now. So yeah.
Well, that's awesome. And thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us during your busy season. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, one of the things that we were kind of interested in hearing your opinion on is the golden age of cheer music. Do you think that was before the license and rule change? And do you think that cheer music now will ever be referred to as the golden age?
I've lightly heard that term thrown around. This is the first time that I've actually heard a human. I've seen it on social media. It's the first time hearing a human. I mean, how cool is that we even have at times like, oh, we consider this the golden age. It's like, well, then, so does that mean we're in the platinum age now? Is that what we're in? Um, I think my opinion would probably be very different if I was still an athlete on the floor. Because I remember that feeling when I was an athlete on the floor of having your music producer use a song that you particularly liked. I personally, I'm like, you know, even though I'd probably be considered a millennial, the way that I was raised and the environment that I was raised in, I'm much closer to like a Gen X type of person. So I'm like pop, not pop. I'm like a punk rock kind of guy. That's my type of music. Like Blink 182, Green Day, Everclear, Eve Six, like that kind of music is really, and even a little bit of Limp Bizkit, I guess it was a part of that too, Linkin Park. But that's my style of music. And so as an athlete, when I would have a Linkin Park or a Limp Bizkit song in my mix, I remember like I would get hyped. Like I'm like, oh yeah, that's my song. Like like it's a song that I know, it resonated with me. And so I know what that feels like. And if I wasn't a producer, I would probably think that those days were the golden age, because you would have these songs that these songs that you hear on the radio and the songs that you kind of get down to end up in your mix, and that was a cool feeling. But because I am on the side that I'm on, and having the experience over the last 9 years of really creating music from scratch, um, I personally think that music now is, I think it's better. And I know that I am the minority, I'm the minority that thinks that it is better now. But something that I try to explain this to people when I've had this conversation back in the, yeah, as you call it, the golden age. You would really have the same like 30 or 40 songs in every mix. It was really like a Billboard's top 50, and that's what was in every mix. And as a music producer, even during that time, what my job, what I tried to do is I try to get these songs before other producers could. Um, and we would, so many of us producers would go to such crazy lengths. I remember I had subscriptions to Russian websites and Swedish websites where I couldn't even read like what was on the web page, but they would have these like, they were called like Euro hits or Euro tracks. They were these compilation CDs of songs that were popular in Europe before they made it to the States. And if I played some of these songs, you would know them immediately because they were in Gym Time, Black Music. They were in these really, really big teams like and the song, what was it in World Club? Like No One Ugly Allowed. Like
Yes.
this on those tracks and tracks like that were on these Russian websites that we would find, these European websites, and we would get access to these before like the mainstream. So that was like kind of what we did as music producers back then is like, we tried to find an edge that way. Like, how can I get this song or get a song before somebody else does? And it was always a race to find those songs, or even better, find these acapellas of a song. That finding a good high quality acapella back then, because really what cheer music producers were, at least for myself, I don't want to speak for everybody, but at least for myself, we were mashup artists back then. It was taking an acapella version of a song, which again, finding a clean, high quality, like studio quality acapella was so difficult and it was so hard. And then mashing that up with another song that was in the same key and close to the same BPM, so it didn't sound crazy when you put them together. Like, that was really what we did back then. And now, everything is completely unique and original and custom. Again, for myself, not for everybody, where, again, in this golden age, if somebody did a Broadway theme, and if two teams did a Broadway theme, it's very, very likely you're going to have at least like a 4 to 6 song layover. Like, both of those mixes are going to have 4 to 6 songs that are the same, right? But now, because everything is completely original, originally written, originally composed, originally performed, you could have two teams that have a Broadway theme, and they're going to have completely unique and different mixes. And they may sound the same, like sonically, it's like you may hear the same type of instrumentation, but it's going to be a different melody. It's going to be in a different key. It's going to be a different, singer, writer, performer that's on those. And so even these two mixes now, they're going to sound vastly different. And so, in my opinion, while the golden age was probably more fun and relatable, especially when the music first came out, you could sing along with it. I think where we are now, especially with the quality of music that is getting produced, I think it's so much better, and it's way more fun. Like, I have so much fun every single day that I'm in this studio. Every single day I have fun in here. There is no boring days. And before, if somebody picked a theme that wasn't fun for me, like, it was a drag. It's like, oh, I got to do this mix. It's music that I don't really resonate with. It's music that I don't really understand. It's music that it doesn't like geek me out. Whereas now I can do a theme that I'm not down with, like a Broadway theme, but I get to be a part of that writing process. I get to be a part of that composition process. I get to be a part of that creative process. And so, even though it's not like my style of music, it's still a really fun experience to get and really expand and get me out of my comfort zone and be a part of that. So I just think it's more fun now. I know everybody out there, there's, the majority of people probably disagree, but that's just kind of where I'm at. I have so much fun that I would never, ever want to go back, because I have so much fun doing what I do now.
Yeah, I think for similar reasons, I feel very like different than most people, because I think that actually the more relatable part is the more custom music that we have now, because you guys take on, I mean, I'm a coach too, so I have seen the new level control room, and I know that like you put in the mascot and the ideas and the themes and like what is so meaningful to your team. Like, you can't get that in a song that was made for mainstream media. You know what I mean? Like, we're creating mini songs for teams. So I think that that's so cool. And I think that, when I sit down as an athlete and I listen to my mix and I hear a line that was specifically created for us, and I know that like no one else could even have produced that if they wanted to, because that is literally about electric. I think that's like the coolest thing. So I think that for the same reasons that a lot of people feel so strongly about the past music and how they used to be able to put in real music, I feel that the new one is better too. So I'm with you in the minority. I'm totally with you.
I love it.
Yeah, and even think back in the golden age, some of the most memorable moments were the customized, unique, like little voiceover drop-ins, right? Like that. And now that's what every mix is from beginning to end. Like, it's all those moments, but throughout the entire thing, like every word is intended to highlight that specific team. And that, like, how cool is that? I mean, you have like 46 8 counts, unless you're on electric, you have 49 8 counts. You have all these 8 counts, and every single every word, every adjective, every verb, every single pronoun, everything put into that music, every pen stroke on a piece of paper or, keystroke on a keyboard is all about that team. It's like that to me, that is so cool because again, I have on my calendar, I have 3 teams called Electric. There are 3 for different programs, and all 3 of those mixes are not going to sound anything like each other because they're specific for that team, The only thing they'll have in common is like electric at the very end, like 5, 6, 7, 8, electric. And that's all they're going to have in common.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that kind of covers the fact that you guys both think that creativity has definitely been nurtured by these new licensing rules and not hindered at all. Have there been any challenges with these original, all beginning to end unique creative mixes?
Yeah, especially, I mean, the challenges are different. There's challenges every step of the way. When the rule change first started, what it really meant is that we as music producers needed to own the licenses. We needed to own the rights to the music we were using, right? We would, if we used a Beyonce song or we used Britney Spears song, then not only Britney Spears and Beyonce themselves, deserve a royalty on that music being used for a profit, right? But then also their producers and their managers and everybody wants their cut. Everybody wants their cut. And so the challenge for us in the beginning was how do we gain the licenses to these songs? And we just didn't, especially at the very beginning, we just didn't have the tools to create the amount of music that we needed. And so we turned to these syncing libraries that, a lot of people know. There's Extreme Tracks, there's Songs for Cheer, there's FirstCom Music, which is now Universal Music that's owned by NBC. There's all these different things. And on these licensed, catalogs, it's mostly made for advertising and scoring short films and all these other things. But then within that is like pop music and, stuff that it's made to mimic that. And you can, on these websites, you can search, give me like a Britney Spears song, and they'll populate it with hundreds of songs that sound like Britney Spears, but they're not Britney Spears. And so then what we had to do as producers is work within our budget to pay usually an annual fee to get the licenses for these. And you didn't want to just stick to one. So when you have this extreme music website and the FirstCom website, and then Level 77 website, and you have these annual memberships, you're paying anywhere between $5,000 to $15,000 a year to have the licenses. So now with just those 3 libraries, my budget all of a sudden, like now I need to be spending close to $20,000 to $30,000 annually just to have these licenses. And so I think that was the challenge at the beginning because again, I didn't have the tools to create enough content for all the teams that I was working with. So it's like I'm spending a lot of money on these licenses, then I'm spending a lot of money creating the stuff. And I think that dissipated over time, once you start to get a handle on how to produce music, like real music on your own, and record vocals and record a singer and, do all these things. Once you learn that, you don't need the licenses as much. So now I really don't spend that much on the license stuff. I still have it because I do mixes that need those. But most of the stuff I do now is fully original and custom. And now there are new challenges. As I said earlier, I had a recording session yesterday. I have another one coming up. And the challenge now is really the preseason. It's leading up to making sure that we stay organized, making sure that all the artists are able to do what we can do, making sure that we, as I said, if we have 2 teams that have a Broadway mix, so now, okay, what do I need to do? I need to make sure that not only am I using different artists for those mix, but I also want to make sure that I use different writers for those mixes too, so that the feeling and the emotion and everything is different from beginning to end, from the pen stroke to the actual day that I'm doing the mix. Every part of the process is going to be different and unique so that those mixes come out different and unique. And really, that's the challenge. The biggest challenge is just staying organized to be prepared. Because once you're in the mix, once you're doing it, it's like this has to be done today because they need the music tomorrow. And if you don't have everything already pre-prepared up to that, like you're in big trouble. And sometimes things happen. I think some of the bigger challenges nowadays is like 2 or 3 weeks before the music is due, the coaches will change the theme. right? Or they'll decide on a theme, like, hey, we don't have a theme, we don't have any theme, we don't have any theme. And then, 3 weeks before, it's like, actually, we decided we're going to do a Fast and the Furious theme. And you're like, wait a minute. Like, I've had all your stuff prepared ahead of time, like 2-3 months in advance. And now you're throwing this curveball at me. And we make it work, and whether that's sometimes, maybe pushing their production back and saying, hey, I want to do a really great job with this. But I can't do the best job possible unless we push this out to give me time to create stuff. Yeah, I think those are probably the two biggest challenges. Like I said, when it first started, getting the licenses to these songs and really owning the rights so that we didn't get in trouble. And now the bigger challenge with the creating more original music is staying organized and making sure that every part of the puzzle fits. And I have spreadsheets that help a lot. It really, really helps me. And that's something that I actually really pride myself on, that I really, really take a lot of pride in, is that no two mixes on my calendar have the exact same lineup of artists and performance time. And there's some mixes that have the same lineup of artists, but they'll have different parts of the routine, and they'll also have different lengths of their verses. For example, if I have Sade on electric for 6/8 counts, and I have Juice on electric for 4/8 counts, but then on another mix, I'll have Juice for 6/8 counts, and then I'll Sade for 2/8 counts. So that way, even though they might have the same roster, the time allotment of the amount of time that they're in that mix is going to be different, just so it always sounds the same. There's a different texture to it. And that's kind of those are really the challenges now, but it's still fun, and I have a blast.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
I think also like the licensing issue, also, as you said, like as time went on, it's also going to be a lot easier because you kind of already own the license to your own music too. And I know there's like so many different kinds. So people who are watching that don't really know cheer music, there's like fully custom cheer music, and then there's like semi-original. And you could just pull from like past mixes, and maybe those still work. I see those all the time. And actually, Bowd did one for one of my teams 2 years ago that Cobalt 2021, their mix worked. Like they had a bunch of voiceovers that just worked with my other team that I coached. It like
It was Blue Crew.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And like they said Blue Crew in the Cobalt mix, just I guess ironically. And then Blue Crew was like their thing when I coached Blue. So like that voiceover just worked and it got put into the mix. So like that issue of licensing, it's still like kind of there, and using real music, because I mean, is this not real music? We're producing real music. So you do put real music. It's just now it's our own kind of genre, which I think is really cool, because now it's like cheer music is its own thing. I see TikToks all the time about like, why does cheer music sound so lasery, and why is it like this, and then all this different stuff, and it's like now it's its own thing.
Right.
It's not just a mashup, it's its own entity. So I think that's really cool.
Well, just to make a joke, the real music thing. So there's two conversations that I've had nonstop for the last 22 years of producing music, coaching cheerleading, and producing music for cheerleaders. The first conversation was usually from elders in my family, aunts, uncles. My parents have always been really, really supportive. So my grandparents, but like, friends, aunts, uncles, and kind of cousins and whatnot. I remember at the very beginning, like, are you gonna ever get a real job? And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, are they paying me in Monopoly money? Like, what do you mean a real, like, it's a real job, I make real money. And then that same conversation with real music, it's like, no, I'm making real music. It's just I'm making it in much, much, much smaller batches and quantities, right? Like you're making a 3.5-minute song with this artist. It's like, well, I'm making a 16-second song with this artist, right? And I'm making this 16-second song and this 16-second song, but it has drums, it has snares, it has hats, it has synthesizers, it has pads, it has 808s, it has all these. There is a full production. It's just this big, from beginning to end. And we do the vocals, we stack and layer and harmonize, and we do all the things. It is real music that is just real short.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess before we get into talking about specific teams that you've worked with, obviously we mentioned Electric, which is Jared's team. Just staying on this subject, really.
You mean the world champs?
Yeah.
The world champ who
champ.
forgot his world champ medal, even though I texted him 2 hours before we started filming.
Oh,
Yeah.
forever global
reigning. Yeah. I like your shirt, Bowd.
Yeah, I like it too.
I wore my lightning bolt today too, and I'm wearing a very special bracelet that was given to me by, is her at Stingray Crush, Jared?
Yes.
I love it so much. I wear it every single day. It says AFTB. Jared, if you want to share what that means.
Yep, that's all for the bolt. And like we were talking about before, like hearing things like that in our mix, AFTB, that means the world to electric. Like that just basically means like we're doing it for electric, for our legacy, for all that kind of stuff. And so then when we hear that in the mix, then it's like, oh, that's something meaningful. And that's like for us. And that's like it makes it more personable. So yeah, all those good things. I think that's also another thing that's hugely involved in cheers. All the team's little hashtags and like we make stuff up and we have our little sayings and then you hear it in the cheer mix. So if you've ever heard like a random string of letters in a mix of cheer, that's probably like an acronym for that cheer team.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, let's
And I'll take it just a quick peek
Yeah,
behind the curtain. If you hear an acronym, chances are that it's either A, really, really special to the team, like it has a really deep meaning and it's not for everybody, and that's why we abbreviate. Or it may have some words that it may be abbreviating words that maybe aren't family friendly, and that's okay. But again, it probably means something to that team. And those little moments where you're able to put it in there, it's like, okay, the whole world doesn't know what that means, but we know what it means. And that is so special and unique to us. And those are just cool things. I really like doing stuff like that.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. But I want to hear the mastermind behind the world's winning mix of Electric 2024. So let's dive into it. If either of you want to start it off, I'm happy to take a back seat.
Well,
Well, I know that it kind of starts, at least from what I've been a part of. Bode gets added to our group me for the team in the beginning, and I'm not sure if that's something that happens on the regular with all his teams, but I know he gets added to all the ones that he works with Paige on, at least. And you know, from the jump, he's always just been like, hey, anytime you want to give me an idea, just like tag me and be like, hey, we really like this. We want this in our mix. And, it really helps being there from the beginning, like the inception of whatever team starts, and then like up until he makes the mix. And he's also just like a huge shout out to Bode as a person and a music producer. He is completely involved in every single team that he does. Like I've watched him with Electric, especially, like he'll come to our performances that he's at and like he'll make sure like all throughout the season, like he'll get sent a video in our group meet, just like, oh, it's a full out. And he'll hear it and he'll be like, hey, that laser's not right. Like I'll send you a new mix in a week. Like, well, less than a week. I'll send you a new mix in like 20 minutes. That laser will be fixed. So he's so on top of things that like having him in our group meet, every time we get an idea, then like I don't know how that storage process goes, and he's right here, so he'll tell us more. But like we just shoot out ideas to Bode and then we hear our mix. So what's that in between look like?
So it is to do that for about 200 teams. It's overwhelming to think about all at once, but it's also, man, technology is such a huge blessing in this regard, because not only, as you said, am I in the group me's, but also most coaches that I work with, at least most coaches with iPhones, we have a shared note, and I do that with as many coaches as will let me. I have shared notes with so many coaches, and they'll add to it frequently. I mean, even just this morning, yesterday morning, I got additions to Lime's little shared note with videos and notes and updates of how practice is going. Also, I believe Silver updated their notes yesterday, and so I just go through those, daily. I keep my notifications off, because if it'll just happen throughout the day, I'll get sidetracked very easily. But usually I either start or end my day going through all those notes, seeing what changes were made, seeing if anybody like changed their mind about something, seeing if anybody added a new idea that inspires a new idea. And then from the beginning, I get with my writing team first and then my, artists. And I work with a lot of artists that write their own stuff. So that kind of takes out a step. So that makes it a lot more convenient. Like Michael writes his own stuff. Sade writes her own stuff. A lot of these artists write their own stuff, it makes it easier for me because it's just one less step that I have to take. But I really just take those ideas. And when I see an idea, it'll usually spark something in me like, oh, I know the right writer or performer that would deliver something really cool for this moment. And yeah, a small example would be like last year, at some point in the group me, I don't remember who said it. I really don't. And I probably have to scroll through thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of messages to find it. But last year with Electric, sometime in August, it was before the mix came out, but it was just like a week or so before the mix came out to you guys. And someone wrote like, we're doing it, it's our time, right? And as soon as I saw that, I was like, that's going in the cheer. And I also was like, and nobody else is going to deliver that line but me. I'm going to be the one that says it's our time. And so I recorded it. I recorded, Electric, Rays, one of a kind, world champions. It's our time. Let's go Rays. And even saying it now, I have goosebumps on my arm. I don't know if you can see that, but I recorded it immediately, like looked at the group me, got on the microphone and recorded it. And then the very next day in one of the coaches was like, we can't have weird cheers this year. Like nobody can have weird cheers. Everybody has to have the standard program cheer. And it took the wind out of my sails. And I found out before everybody stresses out, just a few days after I had found out that was really for the lower level teams. And there was a couple exceptions for a couple reasons. But I was like, okay, well, I had already finished the mix. By the time I found out that it would have been okay, I had already finished it. And I sent Paige the mix. And I said, there is another version. Like there's already a version 2 of this mix. And I was like, I want to send it to you, but I told her, I was like, don't play it for Roger or Casey. I don't remember who it was that made the decision. It's like, don't play it for anybody who's going to not be okay with it. And I sent it to her, and I don't know if she played it for everybody the first time or if she just played it for herself. But when she played it and heard the "It's Our Time" in the cheer, like she immediately sent me a picture with just tears coming down her eyes, which of course brought tears to my eyes because, as you said, I'm very involved in the teams that I produce. I take a tremendous amount of pride, especially with Stingrays, especially with people that I consider my friends. Like I consider Paige a great friend of mine. And so I care very, very much, about every part of the mix. Not only that it sounds good, but that it's on time, that it has meaningful things. And so I had a really, really strong feeling that was going to hit. I was like, I think this is going to mean a lot to her. And to see that I was right, that it did mean a lot to her, that by itself meant so much to me. And then to know that it meant so much to you guys, that whole thing is so special. And that's really what I think the magic is being in the group me's, having those notes and having those ideas come, because most of what we do is very, very far in advance. But then also having that communication. If I wouldn't have been in the group me, I would have never seen that message, and I would have never put that in the cheer, and it would have never been what it was, which in my opinion, there's a lot of great moments in that music. That part of the cheer and then going right into the pyramid, like that is like chef's kiss. I still listen to that mix when I'm working out on the treadmill in the morning, you know? And and that I think is again where the magic happens, and what that process is like is just getting the information as early as possible and staying in communication to get as many ideas as possible. And because it's always better to have 300 ideas and whittle that down to the 46, 47, 8 counts. And it's so much harder when a coach or somebody's like, yeah, we're the electric race, and anything with electricity, cool. And you're like, okay, well, that's very broad. And, I'll still do my best to make it sound good, but it's not as cool as it could be, so it's the more information, the better. And I know that a lot of other music producers do that. I mean, heck, I know Patrick and Victor from Top Gun, like they don't have their mix for the 24-25 season. They already know their theme for the 25-26 season. And that's the greatest gift that you could give a music producer is time and information. Like you give me enough time, you give me enough info, I'm gonna knock this thing out of the park, But yeah, I don't know if I even answered your question because I went on so
Yeah,
many tangents.
kind of you did. Just talking about the mix that Electric won Worlds with. Actually really full circle that we're talking about it today because with this being our season finale, the day we premiered our, series and season premiere, Jared sent me Electric's mix last year and I heard It's Our Time for the first time. And even though I'm not an Electric athlete, I'm not a Stingrays athlete. I'm literally just his best friend and a fan of that program and a fan of that team. I literally sent him a video of me crying, bawling my eyes out. So the fact that we got to see It's That Time, It's Our Time manifested into a champion moment.
Yeah,
Was really
it was so cool. And I'll try to briefly answer your questions. This was so much time not answering it. Um, but I mean, how that mix specifically gets put together is, as many ideas as possible in the beginning, trying to pair the right writers with the right moments and the right ideas. Because some ideas, like, of course, everybody would want, dude, give me Sade for the whole mix. Like, let Sade just rap the whole thing, get me hyped, right? And in theory, that would probably be a very hype mix. But it's like, then there wouldn't be as many textures. There wouldn't be as many emotions. There wouldn't be as much of a feeling and a connection. Especially with, I mean, we've already talked about different genres of music resonating with people. Like, I'm sure there is somebody, I don't know who they are, and they're probably crazy, but there's probably somebody out there that's like, yeah, Sade's okay. So if it was Sade for the whole mix, they would not really get into the mix. But if you're having all these different writers and performers, singers and rappers and all these other people. And even, I have artists that just do spoken word, like they'll just do a punch. Like, I can see from your expression, you find this shocking, right? Like that's her only verse in the whole mix. It's just 1/8 count, spoken word. That's it. But it's like, that's a really cool moment in the mix. And again, it's a really cool texture and it breaks up how kind of the mix goes. And even though it's the same BPM the whole way through with all the different changes in music styles and performers and cadences, it makes it sound like, oh, this part slows down. Oh, this part really speeds up. And it gives it all these different textures and layers. And so that part of the process of pairing the right ideas with the right writers and the right performers, I think that's really key. And then really the only work that I truly feel like I do is kind of arranging that in the right way. Like where would Sade like fit best in this routine? Where would Michael Eddie fit best in this routine? Where would, one of my singers, her name is Janelle. Where would Janelle's vocals, like, would that be a good pyramid vocal? Would that be a good stunt vocal? What are the lyrics that are being sung there? What's the action that the athletes are doing? And then you pepper in all the ideas like, oh, we want to spell out, we want electric spelled out in the stunt. It's like, okay, so now I need to make sure that we have at least 2 8 counts before the spell out, to make sure that the melodies are completed. Because if you've ever had like an incomplete melody, it kind of makes you like, to steal a line from The Office, when Andy Bernard doesn't finish his melody, he's like, I feel like I held in a sneeze. Like it's just an unfinished melody or an unfinished lyric. Like, so you have to put in all these things. And again, I think that's really the only thing that the work that I do that is a challenge, me personally, is making sure that I arrange it in the right way so that the right artist is in the right spot and everything kind of just fits and it flows seamlessly. And that's the fun that I have in the day of the mix. But yeah, that's kind of how the mix goes, is ideas to writing to performing, getting the vocals recorded and then finally getting the video and seeing things with electric, specifically. There's a few other teams, they'll send me videos as the summer progresses. And so I already have the project started. And every time they update a video, I just drop it in there and I see if anything's different or anything changes. And as I get and create the vocal content, I already lay it in where I think it'll go. So like, I already know, I just recorded Sade yesterday for electric, and I already know like, oh, I know where I'm going to put her, at least. So she does. We recorded a lot. We recorded about 12 8 counts for electric. We do every year for a lot of teams, and usually only somewhere between 4 and 8 8 counts make it in. Sometimes I like put stuff in the back pocket and I'm like, you're gonna hear that after NCA, like, but we do like 4 to 8 8 counts somewhere in the mix, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna put her 2 8 counts right here, and then I'll put her 4 8 counts right there, and boom. So I already kind of know where she's gonna fit in the mix. I am getting Michael Eddie's vocals for electric next week, and so Those I'll figure out, I kind of have an idea of where I want it to go. But again, he does his own writing. So I don't know what he's going to do ahead of time. I'm as surprised as everybody when I get his vocal. And so I don't really know where. I have an idea just based on what he's done in the past, what his voice sounds like, how he likes to perform, what his cadences are. I have an idea of where he'll go, but I won't really know until I get the vocal and I kind of see the whole mix come together and see the whole routine. But that's kind of the process. And then it goes from there. And the final piece of the puzzle is adding all the instrumentation, because everything starts out with just vocals. Then we lay in the instrumentation, drums and hats and snares and synths and pads and 808s. And then the last thing that I do is I punch in my vocals, which I usually minimize what I say. The electric is a rarity because I do the cheer. That's just something that's super important to me. I don't know. I don't know why it's really important for me to do the cheer in electric. But I'm the cheer and usually like the beginning voiceover and the ending voiceover, and everything else is all other much more talented and cooler sounding people.
Well, actually, I remember our first mix, it wasn't you at first. And then we were like, we were kind of like, I don't know, that one's not like hitting. And you were like, let me record it. And then I think like from there, like it's been like only you, because like there's something about your voice that just like hits in that cheer that like you're like, I need to hear it that way, that time. Like, so like it's just like
I'm screaming.
I don't know what it is, but it works for that.
We are too, like, when it's playing and they're on the floor.
Yeah, and whether it's like a team or just like in general, I feel like there's like those unspoken rules of cheer music. Like if you're gonna start a line, like you start it on a one. Like that, like those kind of rules. And like if you're gonna have a moment, like you should probably have that moment hit on one. And like we have a cheer coach here, Charlie, who does music, and Blake, who does music, and my friend is also another music producer. So like I like hear those rules all the time. And being a cheer coach, like they're like, hey, like just so you know, we all want good mixes, right? We spend money on them. Everybody wants a good mix. So how are you going to get that? We talk about what is best to do that. We have Charlie here, so he's like, make sure like a moment happens on a one. Five is like okay, but if you really want a moment, make sure it happens on one. If you're gonna do a spell out, you want it to not happen on an even count because those are weird, and you don't really want to start them on a two. It's not gonna sound good. So like those 8 counts really matter, not in just the routine composition, but it matters in building a mix. And then if you don't build the mix right, then like you don't get as hyped up. And if you don't get as hyped up, then you're not going to hit as many routines. And then if you don't hit your routine, you're not winning worlds. So like I firmly believe that like a mix can easily contribute to whether you win something or not. Whether it's because it looks really good, like when you hit it, like you said, the I can see from your expression, you find us shocking. That was one of my personal favorite like moments in our entire mix, because all the co-eds were up. It was like silent for like a split second. And then like the motion hits and you're like, that's like the perfect moment for her to sound like that. And it just looks so perfect. And then like we all hit emotion right after. And it's like, boom, that's how you end it. And then you move on. And so I feel like if you visually look and sound the same on those two, spaces, then it's just easier to watch. Like nobody wants to watch something where, what you hear while you're watching it doesn't line up. That like, I think that is a huge part of it. And then also we were talking earlier about how much you get hyped up from your mix and how much you're like, oh, I like this. This is like whether or not I'm going to throw my pass because I'm either not hyped up or I'm like beast mode right now because of this mix. So it's like insane how much a good mix affects a team.
1000%.
Well, and there's levels to it as well. I mean, Electric has one of the top choreographers in the game with Blake Johnson. And one of my favorite things I tease him all the time about putting 108 counts in a routine. I'm like, you're killing me. But I have to give him his flowers at the same time because he's so brilliant. And he also cares where he'll do the routine. I'll do the music and kind of arrange things where I see, then he'll come back and he'll be like, what are the lyrics? What are the lyrics saying right there? And now he's creating choreography moments based on, so it's like, it's this cyclical relationship where the team gives me information. I give that to my team, who I think is going to put the best product possible on from pen to paper, and then I give it to other members of my team that I think are going to put the best product possible from paper to microphone. Then, you know, I do my part with putting those vocals onto a beat and putting it to the routine where I think it fits possible, and then it goes back to, you know, a coach and a choreographer who's like, okay, so now we have all this, you know, music that's meant for us, and now how can we just take it to the next level and elevate it even more by making the moments and the choreography match these incredible moments in the music. And it's like, it's so cool. And that's, again, one of my favorite things about electric is it's a collaborative process, you know, with a lot of teams and a lot of coaches, but it's a collaborative process from beginning to end. I mean, version 13 of electric's music came out on, I think it was like April 19th or something like that, April 18th.
Something like
It's
that.
like a week before Worlds. It was like, yeah, the 13th version is going out because we're collaborating all season long. We're making little adjustments, we're making little tweaks, and we're trying to make it better so that it's the absolute best it can be all the way up to the finish line.
Yeah. And then Jared, didn't you guys hit like 13 routines before you left? So it was like version 13 and you hit 13 routines.
Yeah, I think it was something like that. And then literally we hit 13, and then we were on like version 12 of the mix, and then it was like, oh, do I need to make another, literally like Bowd cracked the joke, was like, do I need to make another mix? And then I remember, I don't know if you changed something in it, but I do know that version 13 or 12 to 13, we like do this little movement where we like grab the leg in our routine, and then we like looked up and we did our like head roll, and then all of a sudden like mix 13 comes into the group me, and you just hear in the mix it goes woo,
Sound effect.
we like flip our heads and we're like, perfect, another mix, and it
There we
matches
go.
the we hit. And now we're gonna hit at Worlds because we're all just superstitious as well. So, you know,
Well,
all that.
and
We could get into a whole other podcast episode about superstitions in the cheer world.
right. Well, in that moment, it's because where was I? I was somewhere with Paige. I think it was at NCA, and we were watching. Is that in? I think that was in Small Senior X, right? Where somebody did it, da 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 da, woo! Like just
Yeah.
like I was sitting right next to her, and she did the hair whip, and I'm like, you got to put that in a routine. So
Yep.
sure enough, you know, just a few weeks later, that's in the routine. I was like, well, if she went as far to put the choreo in the routine, I'm gonna throw in the vocals to go with it.
Yep. I remember, oh my God, that SSX mix, and they're like, I think it was the elite stunt, and they do like a hair
Yeah.
whip to the back, and they're like, Sharkies are coming back for a swim, woo! And they like whip their head. And that was like,
And
I mean,
Paige whips her head so hard.
and that's the stuff that like makes it on Twitter too. Like you said, it's our time. Everybody felt that. And I can't even tell you the amount of times I saw that on Twitter, especially after we won. Everybody's like, it's our time. Like it was our time. It was their time. Constantly, always on that beat. And I know like we talked about this like probably 20 minutes ago, but literally Paige sent us the picture that she sent you of her crying before we even got to practice, and just said, your music is in. And we were like, oh my God, like I can't wait to hear that. And then literally it got to that part, and you just see like almost the whole entire team like just start to like literally shed tears, and we're all like, oh my God. And then Paige starts crying again while she's like hearing us, or sorry, watching us listen to the mix. And then we're all getting emotional. And we were like, we know that's the moment. And like, because of that, we go into the thing and we get set for those front handsprings, and we hear it and we know it's about to come. And we know it's like it's our time. And that was a driving force. Like just hearing that was such a driving force behind it. Reminded us what we were working for and what we were doing this for. And you know, people who are in cheerleading, or honestly any sport that are watching, can, you know, attest to, you have your moments where you lose your why, and you're like, I don't understand what I'm doing this for. You know, those hard points of the season when you're like, is this work worth it? What is going on? Like, we hear that mix, it comes back on, we do a run through, it's our time. That literally kept us going. And that alone, I can say, easily contributed to us becoming world champions, what we've all worked our entire lives for. And so I think that like music in general to so many people means the world. like outside of cheer music, I'm obsessed with music in general. I mean, hello, I'm literally on a podcast about music alone. And I think that music has contributed to saving my life so many different times. It's like literally picked me up from the deepest, darkest points of life. And I think that the same thing happens for cheer music. Like you get in your ruts of cheer and that cheer music's pulling you back out. That mix is like, I mean, even putting on cheer music when I'm feeling sad, I'm like, yeah, this will get me up because I I know what's about to come and it's about to get me hyped up. Like I know what's about to come. It's just insane. So
No, definitely. I agree 1,000%. There's a reason that we're doing this, and it's obviously our love and passion for music. And, we're always listening to cheer music, whether we're like together or whatever. And just going back to It's Our Time, that had to have been, from my fans' spectator perspective, the loudest words I heard in that arena the entire weekend. So, just to, I guess, wrap things up, Bode, how does that feel to have a lyric that not just you thought to put in the music, but that you said and made come to life in that mix, resonate with not just the athletes, not just the coaches, but the fans of that team? Because that was a moment this whole season, and everybody was rooting for Electric and could see how much they wanted it. So what does it mean to have something resonate like that throughout the industry?
I'm gonna try not to cry. I'll probably make a lot of jokes so that I don't cry.
It's okay. We can cry. Crying on this podcast is totally allowed.
It's a very special thing. I mean, all jokes aside, any music producer that does cheer music, any vocalist that is a part of the cheer music, one of the coolest things, like it never ever ever gets old, is when your lyrics make it on a t-shirt or they make it on a ring, right? Like those are the coolest moments ever. And it's sometimes you don't know like what those moments are going to be. You don't know what lyrics are going to resonate with the kids, the athletes, with the general population. But sometimes you do. Sometimes you have a heads up. And I knew that was going to be special. As I told you, I saw it in the group meet. I immediately recorded it. I'm like, this is perfect, and it can't be anything else. It can't be. There's no way it could be anything else. When they say It's Our Time, and immediately I'm like, well, that rhymes with one of a kind. So now It's Our Time is now that's in the cheer. And I knew that it was gonna be like a cool thing. Like I knew like, oh, they're gonna dig this, right? Like they're gonna really dig this. And seeing how emotional Paige was, as Jared said, like she sent me that picture as she listened to it in the car. And then like 4 hours later, I get, pictures of the whole team, like just crying. And the whole team's not crying, but I get pictures of the whole team and a lot of them are crying. And then that has a different emotional experience for me because again, I knew they would think it was cool, but to see that it meant so much to them, like I can't possibly express the level of joy and pride that it filled me with. And the only things that are even close to it are just the most special moments that you have in your life, right? I mean, you guys are both very young, but I've been married, I've had 2 kids, and there's like these moments that will just forever be cemented in your mind, and you can't even predict how they're going to be there. But It's Our Time, and seeing Paige's reaction, seeing the team's reaction, that made it a moment in time for me. I knew it was going to be cool, but I didn't know how special it was going to be until I saw how they reacted to it. And so that made it really, really special. And gosh, I wish I could make moments like that in every mix that I do. I really do, because I remember what it feels like. Jared already talked about, what a mix is, can have an effect on how you place at Worlds. And it's not because it has anything to do with the score sheet. It's because of how it makes the athletes feel, and I remember that I've performed and been on teams where I didn't like the mix, and we'd hit 0 to that mix and it would be like, cool. And we'd drop all over the place to that mix. We'd be like, all right, cool. And then there were mixes that I performed to that were like, yo, this mix is fire, and I had so much fun every time performing to it. It's like we had 7 deductions. I don't care, bro. That was so much fun because it's like you had the mix that just got you hyped up, and so that's always my goal, energy wise and feeling wise. Like I want the athletes and the coaches, I want them to have fun from the very first time they hear it to the very last time they perform it. I want it to be fun. And if it's not fun, like, and when I say every time, I mean that track gets played. From that very first mix. I mean, you got to think, once you get music, you're not doing anything to the count track anymore. You're not doing anything that counts. Coaches usually have it segmented, like, all right, one with the elites, and then they just hit play, and you run that thing 10 times. So it's like this mix is getting worn out. And if you can find a way, if I can find a way as a music producer to make it fun at the last performance of the last competition of the season, like, then I did it. Like, that's when I'm like, oh, good job. And at Worlds, I was there. I was standing on the side of the stage, and I was losing my mind when those stunts hit, right? When those ticks hit in the pyramid with the "It's Our Time." I'm not joking. I ran a lap around the right side of the spectator section, absolutely losing my mind, because I knew once this pyramid hits, like, these tumbling passes are about to be the best tumbling passes they've ever done, ever. And they were high, they were tight, landed with stick landings, chest up, on the toes, slight bend in the knees, very controlled. It was like, bro, it's a wrap. And I'm just losing my mind. I'm having fun. And again, like that to me is something I really take pride in, is, can I have fun with this mix, 7 months later, 8 months later? Because if you play a mix that I did, 2 years ago, I'm like, oh, that sounds terrible. And I'm listening for different things. I'm listening to, like, things on the frequency spectrum. Like, did that drum kick, does that need to be lowered down, or does it have enough resonance? Like, I'm listening to these things differently now than I used to. But it's like, as I said, I still listen to Stingray Electric in the gym. In the gym, on the treadmill. Like, tomorrow when I work out, I will be running to Stingray Electric, Senior Stars, Top Gun Guardians, maybe a little Cheer Force Infinity. Like, those are the mixes that I listen to now to work out. And it also is it's a cool thing to have that moment, to have the arena scream it. Finally answering your question, I could not hear anything because I was screaming it so loud and freaking out. But it was super cool to see it on Twitter. And then, of course, I think one of the coolest things was Paige texted me. This was like 2 hours after awards. Paige texted me. She's like, "Hey, can you come to the field?" And I was like, "Okay, weirdo." And so I leave the arena and go out to the field, and the whole team is out there. They're covered in the streamers. They have their globe. They have all this stuff, and they're just listening to the music out there. And I'm like, I am gonna cry. Now I'm gonna cry. I did so good not crying. And I'm like, that
made me cry too. I think we've all have videos of it.
yeah, like, I'm walking across the grass, and I can hear the music. Obviously, it gets louder as I get closer, and just everybody's singing it, and they're like just having a ball. And I'm like, that, I was crying. I was absolutely crying, because it's like, how cool is that? And not and all of the things is what brought me to cry, not just the winning the world championship, but like Paige saying, "Hey, can you come out here on the grass? Like, we're doing something, and I want you to be a part of it." Like, her wanting to include me in that, and it was just all of it, all the feels. Just what an incredible experience. What an incredible experience.
Yeah, I can't think of a better story to end on. Bowd, thank you so much for being here. We've adored having you. We adore you. Before you go, if you want to tell everybody where they can find you on social media, whatever you're up to, please go on ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty boring. All I post is about music. If you look at my Instagram, it's like, you see, when I was a single man, it was all food. And then when I met my wife and started dating her, it was all her. And then we kind of just got really busy, and we're not those types of people. I almost said like weirdos, but I don't want anybody to feel type of way. But if they do, we don't mind posting our kids, but we just got busy. We're too busy having fun to pull out our phones, right? But I do like to pull out the phone in here. So now, if you look, like, anything current, it's always in the studio. I posted something the other day with Sade in here. Like I said, we recorded some electric vocals, but most of my Instagram, all my social media is all about music now. But if anybody's interested, it's Bowd Beal, everything. I think I just got TikTok. I'm new to the TikTok game. That one's Bowd.Beal. I couldn't be consistent across the board. I'm sorry. But everything else is just Bowd Beal on Instagram, Bowd Beal on Facebook, Bowd Beal on Twitter, X. Sorry, it's Twitter. Sorry,
It's okay.
guys.
We still call it Twitter too.
It's always Twitter. Always gonna be Twitter.
And then Bowd.Beal on TikTok, but I don't have any posts on TikTok. I don't even know how to post on TikTok. Maybe somebody can do a tutorial. Can you go live on TikTok? Can you do that?
Yes, you
If
can,
you
but I
have-
think you can have a certain amount of followers.
Oh,
Once you get like 1,000 or 2,000, then
you have to have 1,000 followers to go live.
to go
Jared
live
goes
on
live on
TikTok. Yeah.
Okay, well then somebody's got to help me get those followers up because I've been doing live on Facebook and Instagram, but Facebook, it's like my mom's the only one that watches. On Instagram, people tune in from
Instagram, I've seen your Instagram lives. They're fun.
I have a good time. I have a good time with those. And I those are where I know you were going to ask about a sneak peek. But that's where the sneak peeks happen. And here's the honest to goodness truth.
All the tea.
I know. I used to do sneak peeks because I would just get so excited I couldn't even contain it. But then I had a couple bad experiences where like I either made the mistake of sending out the best part of the music and then the expectation was like here and it's like, well, that's only one part of the music. And then I've also had the opposite happen where I send out a sneak preview and they hate it. And you're like, yeah, we don't like that. Is the whole thing going to be that bad? And I'm like, like just kill me, right? So I don't do sneak peeks, but what I can tell you is that Electric's mix is going to be very wild, and we're gonna double something this year. So I can tell you that.
I like that. I like that.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm excited to hear it. Bowd, thank you so much for being here. We adore you. Give it up for Bowd, everybody. Well, that was amazing. I'm speechless, lost for words. But Jared, now that we know where you've been kind of all season, you know, becoming a world champion with the Stingray All Stars Electric, now that that season's over and you're here, what's going on when we come back for season 2?
So, first of all, you're going to be seeing a lot more of me. I am going to be the official co-host of Sarah Bradley on the Guest List podcast.
You just made me feel so special.
And I personally feel great about this. I think that before I was definitely a little overwhelmed. I had a lot going on, but now it just feels like the perfect time to start this journey. And like we've talked about in this podcast, me and Sarah have been through a lot of journeys together.
Oh yeah.
But you know, this is another one that's just beginning, and I think it's going to be a great one. So as far as the guest list,
For our Spotify viewers, I'm crying.
so for the guest list, we're going to continue having impactful discussions about the music industry. We're going to be deep diving into our favorite artists, genres, and pop culture moments. And we're in the process of inviting more amazing guests to join the guest list.
Absolutely, and we cannot wait. Once again, we want to thank Bowd for being here today as our final guest in the first season of TGL. And just a major shout out to all of our guests from this season: Adam, Chelsea, Joanna, Kyler, Jagmac, Sergio, and Kylie. If you missed any of these outstanding guests, make sure you go check out their episodes after this.
With this being the season finale, we are going to take a short break. While you won't get a new episode next month, you will be getting a backstage pass to some of the funnier outtakes that we've had over this year, forming a blooper reel.
We'll also be active on all of our socials throughout the break, so be sure to come say hello at TGL Pod on Instagram and at Setlist Media on all platforms. Let us know what your favorite episode has been this season, and all of our socials and Bowd's will be in the description.
As always, we'll be right here on YouTube and Spotify and looking to widen our distribution next season. So if there's a platform that you want to see us on, drop a comment down below and we'll look into it.
We'll be back with the season 2 premiere at the end of September. Thank you again to Bowd for joining us today, all of our amazing guests throughout this season, and everyone who has supported us and been involved with the podcast this year. Until season 2, we will see you next time. Bye, guys!
Bye!